So when I was in Lansing, Michigan, I did do a meet and greet where I meet people, and this gentleman came up to me, and he was he talked for a while, and then I finally took my camera out and I said, "Hey, could you say some of this back?" So he's from the military. He just came back, I think, from the Persian Gulf area, and he was upset that they sat him down when he came back into the United States. The military sat them down, and they started to tell them that the real enemy is your neighbor in America, who are white supremacists. Do you think I'm kidding? Let's just, and he's obviously very upset about it. Let's watch. All right, so tell me again what you just said.
So my name is Ryan. I work with the Navy's Military SEAL Command. We returned from areas where there was literal terrorism going on. And when we returned, we were forced to go to on base where we were told that white nationalism and white terrorism was the biggest threat to America.
Wow. Okay.
Force-fed.
And how did that make you feel?
Well, considering where we just came from and what we had been doing, it was rather upsetting. And we had a broad grouping of people of different races and sexes and genders, and it wasn't people like me who were complaining about the fact that.
So what he's saying is I wasn't white guys like me that was complaining about this. It was them. It was the people of different colors and genders and ethnicities that were pissed off that they were being told that your neighbor is your enemy, that your neighbor is the biggest threat is white supremacists. And they were, that's what he's trying to say.
Well, he said they just saw that going on where they were. And now you're like people that know what a roadside bomb is.
Right.
And also they saw firsthand how well our intervention worked for those countries.
Right.
And now, hey, now you're going to do that same magic here in your own country.
That's right.
Yeah. I'd be upset too.
That we are being foisted this upon us. It was upsetting. It was nerve-wracking. How can you tell us that we're coming back from areas where the USS Liberty was attacked? We're on the Horn of Africa. We're in the Gulf. And white nationalism and white terrorism is the biggest threat to America.
So that's them making you think that your neighbor is your threat instead of an external threat. Your threat's internal.
Yeah.
Well, it might be, but it's not your neighbor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right, I appreciate. So that was very interesting. He had a lot more to say before I turned that camera on, and sounds to me like he's getting the message that the establishment is trying to brainwash people and turn Americans against other Americans. And let's just remember this. Pentagon report warns of a threat from white supremacists inside the military. This is from 2021. The report, which was first obtained by roll call, does not estimate the number of white supremacists in the military, although it says the number is low.
It's really just mostly the heads of it.
Yeah, how about it?
Well,
but go ahead.
Yeah, so this was after January 6th. They went on this whole crusade inside the military because some of the people out of the thousands were military affiliated, as of course they were.
Remember when gangs were in the military?
But what's most interesting in there is they just give you some anecdotal evidence in the full report. They don't give you numbers. They don't give you statistics. They don't give you any of that. But it's supposed to be this enormous threat to the military. And as we'll see, this didn't work out very well for them long term.
But it warns that even a small number of extremists poses a threat to national security. So that was the whole thing. These people, the January 6th protesters, your neighbor, they're the threat to democracy and national security. And to the cohesion of the armed forces, citing murders, foiled terrorist plots. And most of those foiled terrorist plots were ginned up by the FBI, we find out now, right? And other incidents linked to white supremacists in the ranks over the past decade.
Linked? That's as good as real.
Yeah.
Right. After the deadly siege on the Capitol last month by pro-Trump, that's what this is all about.
That's it. This was after that they did this report.
That's what this is all about. The new Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, ordered a military-wide stand-down to allow commanders to hold discussions with members about the threat posed by extremism.
Oh my God.
Okay, so understand. I think that's what he was talking about. What that soldier that you interviewed was talking about. they literally did a stand down with all the units and lectured them about white supremacy. So it sounds like he was exposed to that he was.
That's what it sounds like.
Right.
Are recruiting numbers down, they say?
Yeah.
And there you go, white people. Your paranoid fantasy of the government coming for you has finally come true.
Yep.
They really are coming for you.
Yep.
How long they've waited.
Yeah.
While the government persecuted every other group of people, they've finally gotten around to the whiteys.
Yeah.
That's what
They've
this is.
always hated unless you're in the what's happened is that group is shrinking of the whites that felt like whites had it good. That used to be a larger group. There was always the outside white guys that got to join the Crips and shit.
The poor whites, it doesn't get a lot of focus because we obviously have other issues with race in America. But poor whites have always been this maligned underclass.
Really just working class
in America.
Actually.
Most of them came over here. A lot of them are descended from indentured servants who never really rose out of poverty, who were not members of the planter class or the slave owning class. And that class always very effectively played them off of poor blacks by saying, well, at least you're going to be better than them.
Yeah.
You can't play it from that side anymore. That's not acceptable
anymore. Or they just grew up in Fresno.
So they're doing it from the other side, that the poor white is your enemy, instead of going to the poor white and saying the black is your enemy. Now they're going to everybody else saying the poor white is your enemy.
So a number of current and former service members face federal charges in connection with the storming of the Capitol. See? Lawmakers ordered the Defense Department to prepare the report after they raised questions last year about how it screens recruits and about recent cases of service members linked to white supremacist causes. So here's Matt Gaetz, and he's going to be interviewing the Secretary of Defense. And watch this.
Your stand down regarding extremism did not help our military. It hurt the military. And I want to share with you that perspective, that it caused service members to otherize one another. It impaired group cohesion. And interesting to me is that I've heard those sentiments most frequently from units that are majority minority.
Which is exactly what that guy told me in Lansing. He said they were upset that they're trying to split up their troop cohesion. They're trying to get troops to look at each other as the threat. Oh, you're the white supremacist. And so he's saying exactly what I was just told in Lansing, Michigan, that the people who are pissed off the most about this are the troops that are mostly minority. Here we go.
This was not particularly helpful, so I wanted to give you the opportunity to maybe share with us more specificity regarding the definitions that seem to be a challenge when Ms. Hartzler was asking questions. How should the Department of Defense think about critical race theory?
Could I make a comment, Secretary? I'm sorry.
Well, I'm very limited on my time, General Milley.
Well, I just want to make a comment that the feedback
I know, but
I've
asked the question to Secretary Austin.
I don't know what the issue of critical race theory is and what the relevance here with the department. We do not teach critical race theory. We don't embrace critical race theory, and I think that's a spurious conversation. And so we are focused on extremist behaviors. And not ideology, not people's thoughts, not people's political orientation. Behaviors is what we're focused on.
I would like to yield some of my time to General Milley because I know that he had some comments that he wanted to make when Representative Gaetz was talking, as well as Mr. Waltz, about a similar subject of the stand down and race theory. Would you like a minute or so to comment on that? Do you remember what your line of questioning or thought was there?
Sure. First of all, on the issue of critical race theory, et cetera, I'll obviously have to get much smarter on whatever the theory is. But I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university. And it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand.
I want to know why I keep blowing shit up.
Well, not white rage, but let me tell you, I'll help you understand it. It's a circus distraction to keep us from realizing that the elites are flanking us and corralling our society into an era where the digital age is a digital cage. And all of this stepped up police, all the soldiers being kept at home are here for one purpose, for when we wake up to realize what's being done to us by a handful of morally vacant pedophiles. That's what all the surveillance is for. That's what all of the terror is for. It's just to get ready for when we wake up. Too late. Enough of us woke up.
Oh, I thought it was just regular rage, but you asked to talk to the manager more.
So should I play more of that? That's good, right?
Yeah, that's good. And then I think the next thing is this very infamous ad. All right.
What?
So this ad is called The Call. This is basically the Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light ad of the military.
Yeah.
This is the one where they really got a tremendous amount of backlash, because one thing you'll notice, a lot of times when this gets clipped, they don't show the very beginning. So at the very beginning, they show a panoply of soldiers. There's not one white person. Now, I'm not saying it should be all white people, although it seems like they went back to that.
Wasn't that the complaint?
We'll see that at the end. It's addition, not subtraction. And that's what we were doing until they decided that it was in the interests of the elites to start a culture war.
Mm-hmm.
Why, if you want to show, and that's exactly what we were doing, United Colors of Benetton, all that shit. We were already moving towards showing a more integrated whole society, but that doesn't make people fight. They want people fighting. That's what you see here.
Here we go.
This is the story of a soldier who operates your nation's Patriot missile defense systems. It begins in California, with a little girl raised by two moms.
This is real.
Although I had a fairly typical childhood, took ballet, played violin, I also marched for equality. I like to think I've been defending freedom from an early age. When I was 6 years old, one of my moms had an accident that left her paralyzed. Doctors said she might never walk again. But she tapped into my family's pride to get back on her feet, eventually standing at the altar to marry my other mom. With such powerful role models, I finished high school at the top of my class, and then attended UC Davis, where I joined a sorority full of other strong women. But as graduation approached, I began feeling like I'd been handed so much in life, a sorority girl stereotype. Sure, I'd spent my life around inspiring women, but what had I really achieved on my own? One of my sorority sisters was studying abroad in Italy. Another was climbing Mount Everest. I needed my own adventures, my own challenge. And after meeting with an Army recruiter, I found it. A way to prove my inner strength and maybe shatter some stereotypes along the way.
What? Okay, all right. So it basically goes on like that, just a little bit longer. All right. So to be clear, that is a real person. That is a real person.
What?
So it's not. Yeah, it's not totally made up.
It looked like MCU Phase 4.
But okay, what did they have to do to find someone with that backstory in the Army? Like,
right?
People with that backstory. That is extremely unusual that they're going to choose to join the military.
That's right.
And the way that they framed it was not addition, it's subtraction. So, okay, now in your effort to try to recruit people like this, who as a rule, they're going to work for a consulting firm when they get out of school. They're not joining as a rule.
What is she doing in the Army?
She, for whatever quirk, she decided to do that. But now you have sent a message to the kind of people who would traditionally join the military. We don't want you here. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't maybe try to attract people like this. I'm not saying people like this don't belong in the Army, but just very much like a lot of what's happening with Hollywood. You see Gina Carano suing them now. They do it in a way that is not addition. It is so clearly that they're sending a signal, we hate you. We hate the people we have traditionally had in these roles, and we want to replace them. You can't be surprised when they listen. It's the same thing when these movies bomb. They blame the audience that they went out of their way to insult. You made it very clear you don't want white men coming to see this movie.
You're saying it was a bad move
they did.
To call your majority population terrorists, like the kind the military fights abroad.
I mean, look, that's why I wanted to show the beginning of that ad, because why'd they go out of their way, not just to add more diversity, but to subtract the traditional base of the
because it's
military.
A brand in decline. If you, the powerful woman that made the Bud Light
yes, right.
The military's a brand in decline. They had to shake it up.
Well, it is now. It is now.
Sure,
they weren't. I mean, from what they're saying, they weren't having that problem before. They're having it now.
Well,
now they can't meet their recruiting
goals. The draft's coming. You ain't gonna queer your way out of it. Put it that way.
Cartoons and propaganda have always gone hand in hand since Bugs Bunny, but now it's to kill people who look like you but might say different words.
Yep.
So, of course, they have to be raised flat. Scooby don't. Anyway, Army sees sharp decline in white recruits, Kurt.
Imagine
Do you
that.
think correlation is not causation, Jimmy?
The Army's recruiting of white soldiers has dropped significantly in the last half-decade, according to internal data reviewed by military.com, a decline that accounts for much of the service's historic recruitment slump that has become the subject of increasing concern for Army leadership and Capitol Hill. The shift in demographics for incoming recruits would be irrelevant to war planners, except it coincides with an overall shortfall of about 10,000 recruits for the Army in 2023, as the service missed its target of 65,000 new soldiers. That deficit, don't worry, they're going to make it up with illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
That deficit is straining the force as it has ramped up its presence in the Pacific and Europe. A smaller army is taking on a larger mission and training workload than during the peak of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, leading to soldiers being away from home now more than ever. A total of 44,042 new Army recruits were categorized by the service as white in 2018, but that number has fallen consistently each year to a low of 25,070 in 2023, with a 6% dip from 2022 to 2023 being the most significant drop. No other demographic group has seen such a precipitous decline, though there have been ups and downs from year to year. In 2018, 56.4% of new recruits were categorized as white. In 2023, that number had fallen to 44%. During the same 5-year period, black recruits have gone from 20 to 24% of the whole. Hispanics recruits have risen from 17 to 24%, with both groups seeing largely flat recruiting totals, but increasing as a percentage of incoming soldiers as white recruiting has fallen. The rate at which white recruitment has fallen far outpaces nationwide demographic shifts. Data experts and Army officials interviewed by military.com noted they don't see a single cause to the recruiting problem, but pointed to a confluence of issues for Army recruiting, including partisan scrutiny of the service, growing obesity epidemic, and an underfunded public education system. That would seem to, an underfunded public education system would increase
that's
recruiting.
where they recruited shitty schools.
Exactly. No, throughout, there's more to that article, but they try desperately to go around the target. For one thing, saying partisan scrutiny. So they're blaming people like Matt Getz for asking questions about what they're doing. See, no, we wouldn't have this problem if you didn't point it out.
Yeah.
If you didn't point out what we're doing.
Ironically.
And then talking about weight and underage, even if those were factors, so why aren't they affecting blacks and Latinos?
Right.
Which they just said are at a stable number. They haven't increased, they haven't decreased. So what you're trying to do here, it didn't bring in more members of those groups. All you did was get less of the white group. You didn't even get more blacks and Latinos. That, as the article says, it wouldn't be a problem if you had a steady number but you just change the demographic. But you're not, because you so clearly focused on one demographic and said, you people are the problem. Okay, so they took you at your word. I mean, what? It's such a great gig to join the army.
Well, college is very expensive. We're also in this very same site. That's where we had the thing about where they're going, don't forgive debt and lower college tuition because it's going to screw up our recruiting. Remember that?
Yes.
Same outlet.
So,
all right. So this is very funny. So throughout, when they were asked, they would not say that anything they did has caused this. And yet, they just released a new ad 2 months ago, and I'm sure you'll see a big change from the other ad we showed.
Stand up! All reach on that.
It's like an ad from 1978. They even brought back the Be All You Can Be.
oh, so you're saying now they're going back to trying to recruit white people?
Top Gun 2 style. Remember Top Gun 2 was deafening how much non-woke it was. There was no bull. It was Tom Cruise. I mean, the call signs were kind of like pronouns, I guess. In a way. But other than that, there was nothing. Not even a gay. They even took out the gay subtext volleyball game from Top Gun 1. That's how much they scrubbed it of anything, and it was the biggest moneymaker that year.
Yeah.
That ad should be named "Come Back, Whitey." I mean that whole. I swear to God, they panned across, like they went all the way in the other direction.
You know what they should do?
When they panned across the faces in the helicopter, they're all white. That's what I'm saying. It's
Russ,
like an army ad from the 70s.
That changes slogan. This is all you can be.
But they have no idea what the problem is, and yet they released an ad that is like a vintage ad from the 70s.
You know another problem?
Like not even. They went all the way in the other direction.
Well,
the army's all white. I mean, sure.
It's not really addressing. Also, there's another problem that they didn't bring up, which is maybe they want to get blown up for no reason in a war we lose.
Well, sure.
For my whole life.
But if that's what it is, that would affect the other groups too. That would affect everybody.
Yeah, it's
only white people.
Well, you know what they say? You're not fighting for freedom. You're fighting for the guy next to you, unless he's white.
So there they are. With their, again, this is crazy. What they're doing is they're making people angry at skin color, and the skin color happens to be white, and the people who seem to be complaining about it, according to Matt Getz and according to the guy I met in Lansing, are the minorities. They're like, they see the game that you're playing, they see you pitting people against each other and wrecking their cohesion of their troop, or their group, or their squad.
Is this okay? Is it who? Like, is the sabotage literally just them punching themselves in the dick, or is there somebody, again, to quote the great Thomas Friedman, is someone a hornet that has laid some eggs in there?
I think you got to remember these generals, chairmen of the Joint Chief, those are political appointments.
That's right.
So they're sensitive to politics. So if Washington is pushing this agenda and they want to keep their job, they're going to initiate policies
like the board
in
of
that
Disney.
Direction.
Everything is
That's
a
why I
goddamn
made that
production.
parallel. It reminds me of that.
That's right.
You know, the Clinton Foundation lobbies movie company. That's where a lot of this bullshit with the movies is from. Some guy from the Clinton fucking Foundation. They do, not even the CIA, the Clinton Foundation. They do lobby money like they're lobbying government. Everything's one goddamn big Disney production now.
Yeah.
Hey, come see us do a live stand-up show. We'll be in Bend, Oregon, Portland, Seattle, Philadelphia, Avenel, New Jersey, Boston, Palm Springs, Stockholm, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Berlin, and London. We're adding a second show in London. The first show sold out. See you there.